Hello everyone, welcome to another exciting episode of Dayspring Discussions. I'm your host Sean McGahee, and this is a show where we talk about movies, TV, sci-fi, fantasy, comic books. If you geek out about it, we're going to talk about it. You can listen to Dayspring Discussions on iTunes, YouTube, Podomatic, and Patreon, and contact Dayspring Discussions on the Facebook group, Twitter account, and dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. Well, happy Thursday everyone. Hope you guys are all enjoying your week. It's almost here, guys. The weekend is almost upon us. For a guy like myself who works retail sales, doesn't really mean too much because pretty much I work on the weekends anyway. But for most people, of course, it means having a couple days, relaxing, getting some stuff done that needs to be done. And this time of year, of course, football season. I got a couple of good stories to talk about today. Of course, fire back on the social media groups Facebook and Twitter. And then, of course, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com if you want to fire back and join in the discussion. I've had some good discussions these last couple of days about Joker. And I got to say, man, it's interesting to see people's different perspectives on it and how, people view the film to go along with it. So, of course, jump over and join in the discussion, if you will. But anyway, I got a bunch of brand new topics to talk about today, of course. I want to go through a few things that happened at New York Comic Con this last weekend, such as the Picard trailer and some Star Wars small news, of course. Not to mention, of course, a report came out yesterday that Sony might be willing to sell the He-Man movie rights to Netflix. I'm going to get into that as well. But first, as I always like to do, if there's some X-Men news, I usually like to start off with that. First off, let's go with this. Yesterday, Powers of X number 6 came out in comic book stores and digital retailers everywhere, and I sat down to read it. Now, this is kind of the last of the introduction of what Jonathan Hickman has done with X-Men, trying to revamp them, reshape them, and basically completely change them, I guess. Throughout the titles House of X and Powers of X, he's kind of changed the way the X-Men core has gone with. It's always been the X-Men with Xavier at the X-Mansion, fighting, against Magneto and the evil mutants and stuff like that. But they've changed it around a little bit. And really, it's interesting because Hickman has changed the entire X-Men framework with just one character, Moira McTaggart, and made this character, who at one point was just an old flame of Charles's, and turned her into the center of the X-Men universe, where he's turned her into a mutant who can reincarnate and have memories of her past lives. And in doing so, she tries to make each life better and better, several times trying to get Charles' help to protect the world, trying to, get together with Magneto, at one point even Apocalypse. So at this point now, she is living what I think is her 7th life, and, she's kind of teamed up with Charles and Magneto and trying to unite all of mutant kind, which seems like they're a bit successful. In this issue, we go to the end of her 6th life, where we're many, many years in the future, and her and Wolverine finally figure out what happens to make their future bad. And so he ends up killing her, sending her back in time, reborn again with the knowledge of what happened in her previous life to hopefully make a better one next time. And that's kind of the thing, though. The theme of it, though, is, she's lived all these lives trying to make the world better, but every time at the end of it, they always lose. And she's still trying to figure out a way for them not to lose, and she thinks she's figured it out, along with Magneto and Charles, uniting all of mutant kind, forming their own government, and Magneto and Charles are kind of all behind this. Now, this kicks off the new X books that are coming in the next couple weeks, like X-Men, Excalibur, X-Force, a bunch of other, different books that I'm excited to read, of course. But the way they've done this and the way revamped the X-Men, I'm interested to see where it goes, but really I'm interested to see if it sticks, to be honest, because it's a pretty radical change from the status quo of the X-Men in my eyes, and I can see it going for a while, but eventually changing back to what the general public know the X-Men are. As a long-time, X-Men comic reader, I'm fine with it. I love changing it up. I hate it when the comic books go back to the status quo and basically do a reboot or a rewind every time. Mainly because, I've been reading comics for decades now, and I get tired of reading the same stories pretty much. So any progression with the characters, I do enjoy. So we'll have to see where this goes. I mean, like I said, I'm interested in it to see what they do. I just want to make sure we stay focused on the characters, namely Cyclops, my boy. I love him to death. And just, keep it with the characters and their stories and see where we go from there, guys. But if you've read Powers of X or House of X, or we keep it up with current X-Men stuff, let me know what you think about this. Where do you think it could go? If you enjoy it, if you don't enjoy it, fire back, of course. Let me know, guys. All right, so the other X-Men story I want to talk about is one that came out yesterday. So apparently there is a Hungarian composer, Georgi Vukan. I know I mispronounced that. I mean, that's just what I do on this show, guys. But anyway, there's a guy, Zoltan Krisko, who manages the estate of the late composer. Now, he's suing Marvel, Disney, Fox, Apple, and Amazon for copyright violations in regards to the theme song of the 1992 X-Men animated series. So I guess this guy Krisko claims that the theme behind the infamous X-Men theme song of the cartoon is very closely related and stolen from the Hungarian composer off of a Hungarian police comedy thriller called Linda that aired from 1994 to 1991. Now, if you go online to the Twitter account, the Dayspring Discussions Twitter account, I posted this there, hit on the link, and then it'll give you the two videos. It'll give you the X-Men opening theme, and then below that, you'll see the theme for Linda the Policewoman. I listened to it, and it does have some similarities. I will give you that. Now, apparently, Krisko, he said, didn't even learn about the X-Men animated series till 2017, which is why these claims are just now coming. How you go, 24 years? Is it 24 years? Without knowing it? I don't know. Honestly, I think, the timing of this, given the fact that, Fox was recently bought by Disney, and X-Men have been around for a while now, the animated series. How this person is just now knowing about it, I don't know. But again, I think the fact that now they become bigger, being owned by Disney, I think this Krisko person is looking for a little cash grab in my eyes. But that's just me. So I don't know. I guess what my question is, going back to, what was it? It was Vanilla Ice, Ice Ice Baby. And then they had the similarities to Queen, Under Pressure. The dun 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 dun. Tsh. If that, is copyright infringement or copyright violation, then I guess this can be considered it too. If that wasn't, I don't think this can. I can hear it in this Linda theme song, but not enough. I mean, come on now, guys. So many songs, so many pieces of art are so similar to others. It's hard to tell. So, I mean, I say that, of course, as an X-Men fan, as someone who loves the 90s X-Men animated cartoon. Either way, it's not like this is going to take away the animated series or anything like that. But let me know where you guys fall on it. Click on the link. Watch the video and the theme for this Linda the Policewoman, and let me know just how close you think it is to the classic X-Men animated series. All right, now that I've got X-Men out of the way, let's move on to another one of my favorite subjects, Star Wars. I know, I feel like I talk about Star Wars more than I do X-Men, so sometimes I feel like this would be a Star Wars themed show, but oh well, it is what it is. Anyway, guys, we are almost 10 weeks away from Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker. Next week will be 10 weeks, which means I am starting my rewatch of the 10 live-action Star Wars films. I'm going to start with episode 1 and go in chronological order from there, do the prequels, then Solo, then Rogue One, original trilogy, etc. So with this, of course, my wife, who, is a big Star Wars fan as well. We're going to be doing a couple little retrospectives. Each week, we're going to come and talk about the film we just watched. So, like next week, we're going to watch episode 1. We'll hop on here and talk about episode 1. I think it should be interesting, especially when it comes to the prequels, because with episode 1, it has been 20 years. The way we view the prequels in episode 1 now, I think, is different than what we did back then. And of course, with the added layers of all, the animated series and comics and books that add to the depth of the characters. Again, I think it's just a different perspective we can have on it now than we did all those years ago when the film first came out. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with her. Also, in regards to Star Wars, speaking of Rise of Skywalker, the journey to Rise of Skywalker has begun. I know they did a little piece at New York Comic Con in regards to the book that's coming out. I forget the name of it, but it comes out next month. It's one I'm looking forward to. And then they also talked about other publishing things that are on the way. Now, yesterday, Marvel just released kind of their first journey to the Rise of Skywalker, Star Wars Allegiance. Now, this comic takes place after The Last Jedi, and of course, before the Rise of Skywalker. The Resistance is kind of in hiding, and the team is trying to find resources for the Resistance. Like Poe and Finn are out trying to find ships to help build a new fleet. Rey's off on a planet trying to find some power sources, and at the end of it, Leia, Rose, and Rey and Chewbacca end up taking the Falcon to go see the Mon Calamari. And I like this because, one of the sad and tragic looked over deaths of The Last Jedi was Admiral Akbar. Classic character. I remember it was, 2 Christmases ago when we make our cookies, our Christmas cookies, and we have a little competition at our house as far as who makes the best decorated cookie. And my cookie that year was basically a tombstone for Admiral Akbar, which I don't think got a lot of votes, but I just wanted to, get it out to the public that, hey, yes, Leia got thrown into space, but guess what? So did Admiral Akbar, and he didn't fly back in like Mary Poppins. But now maybe in this comic, we can put, the death of Akbar maybe a little more on the forefront. I hear his son's going to be in this one as well. There's a couple other characters that we saw in a Clone Wars episode where the battle with the Mon Calamari are in there. So again, tying the canon in there, that's, something I'm all about. So interested to see where this one goes, of course. But speaking of comics, of course, at New York Comic Con, Marvel did announce that they are canceling all their current Star Wars books and revamping them starting next year. Now, the main one, they're canceling their main Star Wars book that's been going on for several years now and revamping it. Now, that book has events taking place between Episode 4 and Episode 5. They're going to restart it, and it's going to be the events between Episode 5 and Episode 6, The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Now, it's not as big a time leap as was from A New Hope to Empire Strikes Back. That's in the time frame, I think, supposed to be 3 years. From Empire to Return of the Jedi is only supposed to be like a year or less. So, not as much time to do stuff in that frame. But I think it's a very interesting time frame that they haven't explored a lot, which I'm very interested to explore myself. I mean, when they interviewed Charles Soule, who's writing it, he says, the idea that I get to leap into answering some of the questions, such as, how did Luke go from being a miserable dude with his hand cut off to being that black uniform badass who waltzes into Jabba's palace with his hood up? How does the rebellion go from this ragtag scattered group that lost at Hoth to the hugely mobilized massive fleet that takes on the Death Star 2? How is the mission to save Han planned? Talking about those things is basically what they're going to deal with, and we don't see a lot of stories between this time frame. I mean, the most famous one was Shadows of the Empire, which I enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to, in the new canon, answering those questions, but getting in with the characters, especially the journeys internally that the characters are going on. I mean, obviously Luke, finding out Vader's his father, suffering a big defeat, he's going through some stuff. Leia, having just lost the man that she loves, and also, maybe still trying to be a strong character in the rebellion for that whole movement is something. Chewie, again, losing his best friend. Lando having lost the way of life that he did. I think there's a lot going on, the characters internally between those two movies, and I want to see that internal struggle. Show me what happens from there. Charles Soule, like I said, is going to be writing it. I couldn't be more excited about it because Charles Soule is one of my favorite Marvel writers right now. Not only did he do the Vader comic, that it was very good, he also wrote Daredevil for a while there. Just really a solid writer, so I'm excited to see what he does with this. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully you guys are too. Of course, fire back in the comments and social media groups. Let me know what you think about the relaunch for Marvel Star Wars comics. All right, so continuing with New York Comic Con news, probably one of the bigger things that came out of Comic Con last weekend was a new trailer for the Picard series that's going to premiere on CBS All Access on January 23rd. Now, this, of course, stars Patrick Stewart. It's post Star Trek The Next Generation and The Next Generation films that have come out. And really, if I'm thinking about it, I feel like this is the most furthest into the future that we've gotten with Star Trek, because you had Next Generation and then you had Deep Space Nine. Now, I don't know where Voyager sits on it. Again, I'm not a big Star Trek guy, so I don't know where in the timeline it sits. If someone wants to let me know, that's fine. But I know after Voyager, you had Enterprise, and that takes place, before even the original crew. Picard, he's retired, he's back on his family's vineyard, and then this young woman shows up, gives him a call to action once again to jump back in the fight. It's Patrick Stewart, guys, okay? Patrick Stewart as Jean-Luc Picard. We get to see him back in that classic role. We also get to see some classic characters from the old Next Generation, such as Jonathan Frakes as Will Riker. You got, Brent Spiner back as Data. You even get to see Jerry Ryan back as Seven of Nine, who was in the Voyager series, exploring some things that have happened in the past. With Picard, you got the shot of the Borg cube there, bringing in Jerry Ryan as well. There's going to be some Borg stuff going on, because that was a huge plot point or storyline in The Next Generation for that. Again, I'm not a big Star Trek guy. Honestly, Next Generation is probably the one show of Star Trek that I can sit down and watch and enjoy. The newer films that started off with J.J. Abrams, the Kelvin timeline, I enjoy those most of all. I know some Star Trek fans don't like them, but, as a Star Wars fan, I do like them. I even enjoy the comics by Mike Johnson, actually, which are very good too. So I'm a fan, I would say, of the Kelvin timeline and of Star Trek Next Generation. Voyager, Deep Space Nine, I'm not really, I've seen a couple episodes, but can't get into it. But I have, throughout the years, learned to appreciate Star Trek more. I've seen all the films going all the way back to Star Trek, the motion picture. So as I've gotten older, I appreciate Star Trek more than when I was younger. But still, I'm a Star Wars guy, so there it is. But this looks good, okay? This looks exciting. It's, got a great cast to it. Some of them include Alison Pill, who was on one of my favorite shows, The Newsroom, which I started recently rewatching on HBO. So having her in there seems great. Santiago Cabrera, it looks like he's going to be some kind of pilot, but he played Isaac on the show Heroes on NBC. So you got him in there. And like I said, overall, it just looks very interesting. Now, I commented, I'm not sure if I want to go ahead and sign up for CBS All Access at the beginning and watch it weekly, or wait a month or two and then just binge watch them all. I haven't decided that yet. CBS All Access is only, $5 a month maybe? I don't know. We'll wait and see about that. I haven't shown my wife the trailer. If I can get her on board and maybe her watching it, but she likes Star Trek less than I do, so I'm not sure if that is. But if I can get her on board, I can get the funds I need to pay for multiple months. But we'll wait and see about that, guys. But I enjoyed the trailer. If you're a Star Trek fan, I definitely want to know your thoughts on it. Let me know what you think about this and other things in regards to Star Trek. I know they had a new trailer for Discovery, for the new season of Discovery as well. I gave Discovery a chance, and while I respect it and get why people like it, I couldn't stick with it. Again, not a big Star Trek guy, so I get it, I support it, but I don't watch it. So, but if you have comments on that, Picard, or anything else, fire back on the social media group's Gmail account. Let's get talking. And speaking of trailers, guys, the first trailer for the newest season of Netflix's Lost in Space came out. Now, they're not calling it season 2, it's just Lost in Space 2. You know, kind of like a sequel movie, which is fine by me. But season 1 came out, I think it was earlier this year, maybe? Or maybe it was last year, I don't know. But the newest season is going to pop up around Christmas time. And the first season of Lost in Space, I gotta say, I enjoyed, but I didn't love. I stuck with it to the end, and if I remember correctly, by the end of that first season, you had what seemed like the core idea of Lost in Space, which is the Robinson family, what's his name, Don West, and then Dr. Smith. They were in the ship and trapped all by themselves, whereas this first season of the series, they were with the whole group of people throughout most of the season. This one, really gets to what people think of as Lost in Space. It looks like they're going to be searching for Will's robot, who helped him out and he made friends with. A lot of different other questions that go along with it. I'm going to watch it. I will say I will watch it. I enjoyed the first season enough to where I will watch it. Will get it? Anyway, but Lost in Space, the idea of it is cool. I'm very curious, it's Netflix, and this is a big budget series, which I'm going to talk more about that in my next topic. Just the funding for this, it looks, something where you can't half-ass it. To get it to look cool, to get it to look enjoyable, to where people will enjoy it, you have to spend the money on something like this, and it looks like they did, especially in this next season as well. So give it the cinematic experience, and I think people will gravitate towards it. Releasing around Christmas time is great, of course. Family time. I know my dad, who's big on sci-fi, he watches it. I think he said when he was a kid, he watched the original Lost in Space. And me, myself, I enjoyed the 1990s film that had Matt LeBlanc and William Hurt in it. I enjoyed that. What was it? I think it was 98. I think it was that one came out. But I enjoyed the film. I'll admit to that. So, it was cool. And seeing this trailer kind of makes me want to go back and rewatch the film. I'll see if I can find out any of the many streaming services I subscribe to. Although I doubt it, because whenever I want to watch a movie, I hop on multiple streaming services that I subscribe to and pay money, and it's not there. But that's a different subject. Anyway, Lost in Space 2, coming out at Christmas time. I enjoyed it. I think it's really good sci-fi in this day and age. But fire back, let me know what you think about it. If you enjoyed season 1, if you're planning on watching season 2, and we'll discuss it, guys. Okay, and my last story for today came out yesterday. So, we know for many, many years now, Sony has been trying to do a Masters of the Universe reboot. It's been off and on. They've had multiple directors, multiple writers attached to it. Now, a while ago, they did set a date for 2021 that it was going to be released. They even had a possible star to be in it. But, with this film, it's one of those things where I'll believe it when I see it, to be honest. So a report came out yesterday, according to the Hollywood Reporter, that Sony's chairman, Tim Rothman, is thinking about the prospect of selling the film to Netflix. Okay, so they would, kind of take some of the financial burden off of themselves, mainly because they fear that the film won't be a success. Now, Sony, aside from Spider-Man, has had a rough couple of years financially. Their biggest blunder was X-Men Men in Black International, which was last year, which I know they took a dive on, and several other films that have not worked out for them, which is not good for a studio, Disney, they have a couple films that don't hit it big, but their films like, say, Avengers Endgame hit it massive, and that makes up for the films that don't. Spider-Man, while making money, still doesn't even out the films of Sony that didn't make money, okay? So having them take this idea for the film and share it with Netflix seems like a smart move, especially since it's Masters of the Universe, and I don't know how many people that are younger than me, which are quite a few people nowadays, would enjoy a Masters of the Universe film. I think they'd enjoy it if it was done right, but it's the brand recognition, Masters of the Universe, to me, I know, I like it, I'll see a movie about it. People say 10 years younger than me, they're not as familiar with it. They may not know what it is, so they may not be inclined to see a movie just because it has the title of He-Man or Masters of the Universe. So I understand the risk and hesitation that they have for it. Now, my other question about this is Netflix, okay? Because Netflix, if you don't know, spends a crap ton of money, okay? And it's understandable because they're trying to spend money to make up for the fact that in several years, they're losing a lot of their programming, okay? Disney Plus, the Peacock, the NBC Universal thing, Warner Brothers is teaming up with, what is it, HBO Plus or something like that? I forget what it is. HBO Max is what it is, okay? So basically you have Universal, Disney, and Warner Brothers within the next couple years are taking their stuff off of Netflix so they can put it on their own streaming platform. And a lot of what people watch, yes, there's a lot of original content on Netflix, but the main stuff people watch are not Netflix original stuff. So Netflix is trying to spend a bunch of money now to keep their money later, or keep their subscribers from canceling their Netflix accounts, to give them enough good quality content to save it or save their account when The Office, Parks and Rec, Star Wars films, Marvel films, when they all leave Netflix. So it's understandable, but I know Netflix is spending a crap ton of money. They're definitely in debt. There was a story I read yesterday in the Hollywood Reporter about studios and how much debt they're in, and they keep spending more and more money. They owe a lot more than what their net worth is. Netflix is kind of right in the middle of all of it too. So while it is a risk for Sony to make Masters of the Universe, I think it would be a risk for Netflix to also make the film. Because again, going back to say Lost in Space, okay, I think that looks good because you can tell they spent the money to make it look good, okay? Masters of the Universe, a sci-fi film, a fantasy film, you got to make sure it looks good if you want it to do good. Obviously, you have to have a good story, good actors and stuff like that. But if it doesn't look good, that's one of several puzzle pieces you leave out, it doesn't work. So you're going to have to spend money on this, much like you're going to have to spend money, on Lost in Space. Netflix and Sony both are spending a lot of money. Can they afford to spend the money on this as well? I like them to. I love Masters of the Universe. I'm all about it. And I think, honestly, if done right, it could be awesome. Now, Netflix kind of has an investment, though, in the He-Man property, because right now they're doing the She-Ra and the Princesses of Power animated series. I'm not sure how successful it is, but I just saw a trailer for, I think, season 4. That's coming out. And also, Kevin Smith will produce a sequel to the classic He-Man and the Masters Universe cartoon for Netflix too, leaving off where the 80s cartoon left and making it a little more adult themed, I think, is what the idea was. So they're kind of all in on the Masters of the Universe franchise. So it makes sense that Netflix would pick up the ball and run with it when Sony drops it. Again, my hesitation is just, the budget. Okay, Netflix, do they have the budget for this, to continue and make it right and do it good? That's really, again, what my hesitation is in all of this. I am a Masters of the Universe fan. I enjoy the animated series as a kid. I'm all about it. So if they can make it and make it good, great. But you got to think budget. It's all about the budget, especially in this day and age where studios are spending so much money on their films, so much more money on their films. And guess what? Shit trickles down, okay? Why are you spending, $12 to $20 on a movie ticket? Because the theater chain has to pay the studio, and the studios have a bigger budget for their films, so they have to recoup more money. Same thing with subscriber bases, okay? Netflix is spending a lot of money on their original content. So how are they going to get the money for that? By raising prices on their subscribers, okay? There you have it. What do you think? Okay, He-Man and the Masters Universe. Do you think Sony should hand the ball? Do you think Netflix should pick it up? Let me know, guys. Of course, I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this. Fire back on the social media groups, Facebook or Twitter, and of course, dayspringdiscussions@gmail.com. And that will be it for me today, guys. Okay, I got to get ready for work. A lot of good stuff happening this weekend. What's coming out this weekend? Gemini Man is coming out with Will Smith. Probably go see that. I'm not sure if this weekend, sometime next week. Also, the Addams Family cartoon is coming out. I'm going to take my daughter to see that. I enjoy the Addams Family movies in the 90s. I never watched the original show, but I did enjoy the movies with Christopher Lloyd and Christina Ricci. So, and this looks, very kid-friendly, I think, especially around this time of year. So I want to take my daughter. She seems like she might be interested in that, so I'll check that out as well. You guys fire back, of course. Let me know what you are excited about upcoming for this weekend or later on. And like I said, that is it for me today. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter under Slim Dayspring 12. Go off, enjoy your weekend, enjoy your life, and until next time, may the Force be with us all.